Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning. This is Kinetic Chaos podcast number 77. I am your host, joined remotely by my good friend Wes.
Right here I am.
He is at his house. I am in the secret underground bunker on this Monday evening, 8:37 p.m. We are on YouTube Live. For those that are listening to the podcast, you can join us on the live broadcast whenever you like at our YouTube channel. The link is going to be, I'll post that up right before we start each show. Now that we've got that fun stuff out of the way, how are we doing tonight, bud?
Fantastic. No complaints.
Yeah,
Monday's over with, so it's all good now.
yeah, it's all downhill from here,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah, that's what we all do. We just got to get through Monday. We gotta fade that day. But actually, today was for a Monday, pretty dang good day. A lot of crazy stuff going on. How was work for you? Anything exciting?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, it was the same thing for me. It was nuts at work, busy all day, which of course makes the day go by fast. So that was the one good thing.
Absolutely. Is that what you're going with for your good thing?
My good thing, no, I'm going to go with the fact that the Cardinals broke camp in spring training, so it's go time. They're heading north. They're playing. They played tonight. They played the AAA affiliate tonight for an exhibition game. Then they've got the next 2 days off, and then on Thursday they're in Milwaukee to start the season. So it is almost finally baseball time.
I know that feeling of waiting for the first opening day of baseball. I'm right there with you because we've got this lull every year when I pretty much think that everyone should like fly to Fiji or get the hell out of town or something, because after the Super Bowl, the weather sucks up here. There's really not a lot going on, and we're just waiting for spring and baseball to start.
Yep.
And I'm right there with you. The Yankees will be ready to rock and roll and hopefully take on the world champion Boston Red Sox and defeat them this year
There you go.
in the AL East. So how are the old Cardinals looking in the?
They're looking real good. It's one of those. It's one of those things. They look good on paper, just so long as they can stay healthy and and do what they're supposed to do. I mean, they've got a solid lineup, top to bottom. So
Yeah, well, they always do. I mean, as much as we talk trash between leagues and stuff like that, you always have to admit that the Cardinals have one of the integrity wise, dignity wise, all of those things. They're at the top of the line in terms of all of sports, in my opinion, for how they run their operation. It's very commendable.
Yep.
So for me, I'm going to go with something fairly simple. We talked 2 shows ago about this weather that we've had, how it's broken nice, relatively speaking, and the need to fire up the grill.
Yeah.
And I will say that I have gotten after the grilling in spades. If you follow my personal Instagram account, you can find me at Slater98671. I've been posting some photos of my recent barbecue adventures, and last night, one of my favorite yet simple dishes I made. We wrapped bratwurst, just Johnsonville brats, nothing fancy, in bacon on the grill, then topped them with Swiss cheese, and then on top of that, we've got the red bell pepper, mushrooms, and onions. And I'm not telling you, a little kraut. Amazing.
Yeah, and I told you that we discovered, after I saw that photo of that, we discovered we had brats in the freezer. So I was going to copy that recipe and do it this weekend. But my wife decided that was too long to wait. And the brats are now thawed in the fridge. So that's go time tomorrow night, because it's supposed to be sunny tomorrow.
Yes.
So that's good grilling weather. So we're going to do bacon wrapped brats for dinner tomorrow.
Very, very nice. That's exactly what I like to hear. But I love it when I get to influence people. Am I an Instagram influencer now? Because you're going to be making bacon wrapped brats. Some people you responded to it that it was pork on pork crime. I don't think there was any crime involved. I think it was a harmony of flavors. I think I actually forgot just how damn good those brats are. I don't know. It's just the original ones, nothing fancy, just the straight up Johnsonville brats.
And you can't go wrong with the sauteed peppers and onions going over the top of it. It's just incredible.
Yeah, no, and good mushrooms, and but and you got to make sure that when you're stir frying or when you're frying them up in the pan, that you don't get too crazy and overcook them. You want to have a little bit of tenderness.
Yep.
Little well, not quite a crunch, but you know what I'm talking about. He
Little
wants
tooth left to him.
a little tooth.
Yeah.
That's high profile there, buddy.
It's Italian verbiage, right? It's like an al dente pasta kind of deal. So,
Wow, but we're
yeah.
talking about sausages. So
Yeah.
let's jump into a good news story here. I thought this was a pretty cool story. We've got a mom and daughter that were piloting a Delta Airlines flight recently.
Yeah, this is a pretty neat deal. This was a flight from Los Angeles to Atlanta. And I guess obviously it was like you're saying, mother and daughter piloting, but a passenger happened to, I think it was before they took off in LA, asked if their little kid could go, visit the cockpit before they took off. So they said, yeah. The flight attendant said, yeah. So they went up there, and then the passenger struck up a conversation with the pilots and found out that they were mother and daughter. So then they took a picture of them and then shared it on their social media. So it kind of blew up from there, but it's a pretty neat deal. Excuse me. And evidently it's a family. I think her
tradition.
Yeah. Well, it's her dad. So the daughter's parents were both pilots. Her husband is a pilot. And then her sister is also a pilot. So basically everybody in the family is a pilot.
That is a true family affair.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure they probably have some kind of airplane in the family that they use for their personal
no kidding.
adventures as well.
Yeah.
No, that's pretty cool. I thought the picture was neat because you could see, just the joy in the faces of the mom and daughter that they get to work together. Who knows how often they get to do that, but
right.
It's pretty neat. So
yeah.
That's pretty cool. Go ahead.
And say one side note, another funny, not so funny if you're on the plane probably, but a funny airline story that happened, I think yesterday. A British Airways flight filed the wrong flight plan and literally logged it into the computer with the wrong. Did you hear about this?
Yeah.
And so they went.
It flew to Dusseldorf or something.
It was supposed to go to Dusseldorf. I forget where they originated. It was supposed to go to Dusseldorf, Germany, but they hung a left and went west and went to Edinburgh, Scotland. So the flight plan that they programmed into the computer was to Edinburgh, Scotland instead of Germany. So there's a few countries off. So they land in Scotland and everybody's wondering what's going on. So yeah, So I'm wondering what kind of discipline did they give those pilots for logging the wrong flight plan? You go to a wrong country.
Right. Well, my understanding though is that the pilot actually asked the passengers who would like to get off in Dusseldorf. That's the kind of the whipped cream on top of that pie. Because you end up in Dusseldorf. That's the one thing that's kind of nice about Europe, though, is they're all kind of close together. I believe they took off from East London. Okay. I don't think it was Heathrow. I think it was East London, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I thought that was a fairly entertaining story there. So yeah, I mean, and in light of the recent tragedies, it's nice to have a little lighthearted fun with the airlines, and we'll get to a little bit more of that here in just a minute. But first off, we're going to start with the top story all over the world, all over the United States, all over Twitter, every social media. People are melting themselves down because the Mueller report has been submitted to the Attorney General.
Yeah, and bottom line is Mueller stated that there wasn't enough evidence to bring forth any more indictments. So he's closing the book on the investigation. And of course, now all the leftist media and the mainstream media is, like you said, flipping out, and they're claiming it was a cover up all along. And now they want to, several congressional leaders now want to open their own investigation or keeping on with this investigation. And it's just a dog that won't die here.
No, that's exactly right. Now, the one thing that I did find interesting was that Barr in his quote unquote summary didn't bring up any of the counterintelligence stuff. That's the one thing that I would like. I mean, ultimately, I want to see the report out.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what it needs. That's really what needs to happen. And the fact that they brought a floor vote in the Senate today to release it, but McConnell blocked it. Not a fan of that whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, it's if there's sensitive info. You can understand if they need to redact some stuff here and there, but for the most part, you gotta give people more meat out of the report than just a brief summary. So
yeah, 4 pages out of a document that I would imagine
it was
fairly extensive.
It was like 400 or 600 pages, I think.
Yeah, it was
the full
22
report.
months worth.
Yeah.
But one thing that I read was that story that I shared with you by Matt Tabby from Rolling Stone, freelance work, written a number of books. I thought it was a really good piece on, he basically called journalists on the carpet for their, whether it's fear mongering or spreading false claims or, chasing pipe dreams that aren't reality because of a political narrative that they're trying to push. What we should be focusing on is the truth. We know that Trump's underlings have been brought to justice or are in the process of that. But when it comes to the president, it's about facts. It's not about calling names. It's not about this cloak and dagger BS that seems to be proliferating with all of the journalists that have made it their life's duty to find some kind of charge to bring up against them. But I want what Tabby said in the article, and what journalists need to always remember, is that they're supposed to be unbiased.
Yep.
And that's what they have failed miserably at doing. You and I are here presenting our opinions. We are not journalists, quote unquote. We have opinions, and we don't hide the fact that we share them. But if you're a journalist and following journalistic standards, that's the key. They kind of take an oath, per se, to follow a set of journalistic standards that they should hold in high regard.
Mm-hmm.
And they have failed tremendously at that in this last 22 months. And they've whipped up a fervor in our nation, and I think that they've stoked the fires of divisiveness in the country.
Yeah, and what really drives me nuts is it goes both ways too, and it goes for both political persuasions on the main ones on both sides, left and right. Is that everybody knows that the lion's share of the mainstream media has a left slant, and then Fox is the counterpart with a more right slant. And what really drove me nuts the other day was listening to somebody on the radio, conservative, conservative talk show host. I can't remember who it was. And they were upset with the fact that Fox has been hiring some more liberal contributors. And they were saying that, well, all the liberals have all these news stations. We need to keep a conservative news station for us. I'm like, that news is not supposed to be about right and left. It's supposed to be the news. Like you said, it's supposed to be unbiased. So if you're calling out all the leftist media outlets, and rightfully so, there's a lot of them, you can't also in the same breath be saying, well, we need to keep a strong conservative news outlet, because then you're not doing yourself any favor either.
Well, yeah, you're exactly right. I'm sorry, Kim was talking off the screen, so I lost a second of that. But no, I mean, the unbiased part is the key to the entire picture, and they need to pick up their game, though. But and what you say about Fox is exactly right. I would applaud them for bringing on a number of different, from all aspects of political persuasion, so that we can get a well-rounded picture of what it is that they're reporting on. And the one thing that I've seen, I think, happen in the last, before Trump, and it's bled over into sports and all this, it's this commingling of opinion and reporting.
Yep.
And that's a tremendous problem in my eyes, is this: we don't know where the reporting of a story ends and the opinion begins. Because now when you read these pieces, I mean, some of the stuff I was reading yesterday, it was outrageous, the personal attacks or the personal opinion that they are putting into pieces and trying to intertwine it with facts. And that's just not it's not something that we had for, all of the years before the internet, and I guess the early years of the internet, we didn't see it as much. But you see it with these, with, like I said, with sports shows, and First Take, and or whatever those the morning shows are on ESPN, and where they
Right.
just sit there and scream at each other and stuff like that. The one thing I wanted to ask you about, what your take was on Mueller's decision to withhold a recommendation on the collusion charge. The
Yeah.
fact that he wants to leave that up to Congress. What was your take on that?
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth because I don't think it's necessarily his place to. I mean, I know he's a special counsel, but he's not really a prosecutor. So that is to say, it's not like a DA recommending charges against somebody. So I don't know. I think he ultimately did the correct thing by, and then, like we said, we don't exactly know word for word what's in the report, but based on the summary, said that there wasn't not enough evidence to bring any sort of additional indictments. But then not going into specifics, like you said, of whether there was any sign of collusion or anything like that. So I don't know. I can see it both ways. So.
Well, and I mean, they brought a number of indictments against a whole bunch of other individuals, so they weren't afraid of that. But in the end, it feels like it was kind of, it left us wanting more, because we all felt at the beginning of this that he was going to come out with a conclusion, a true conclusion, and all I've seen, in my opinion, this is what is going to occur, is that it's going to further politicize this, because we're going to have to trot everyone out in front of Congress, and it's going to be another political charade. And that's not what we need right now. We need some definitive answers, and we need to get this done.
Yeah.
We're getting ready to go into election season, and we need to not have this cloud hovering above us. And I just don't. I mean, I certainly don't foresee that ending anytime soon now.
No
because of this. And the other thing that I was kind of thinking about is, I just lost it off the top of my head. But yeah, I just lost it. I'm sorry. But I think in the end, though, like you said, it's, we want to see the unbiased journalistic integrity of these folks, and it doesn't matter if it's on Twitter or whatever. If your Twitter handle includes NYT or WAPO or something like that, you're held to that standard when you're talking on a public platform. Because if Twitter is, and there's another intersection of opinion and facts, because they use those large feeds that they've got with 150,000 or 500,000 people following them to spread the reporting that they have, and then they come back with whatever kind of tweet they may conjure up regarding what their opinion on what they just reported is. And that's not a good look. I don't know. It's all become one giant stew of crap.
Yeah, and a lot of that issue also arises, especially like on Twitter, where the media is so quick to rush to judgment and throw something out there on anything, not just this investigation, but anything. They'll blast out a headline before all the facts are in, and then it turns out they're totally wrong, and they never issue a retraction. They just kind of move along like, oh, it never happened. We'll just keep going and go a different direction now. So that's something that drives me nuts.
Absolutely, because typically they're the ones that are holding people accountable for their actions, right? I mean, that's what the duty of the press is. They hold the government and public officials, or it doesn't matter, athletes, whatever it is, they hold them responsible for their actions.
Right.
Well, who's out there holding them responsible? Because now these guys are treating themselves and their colleagues as rock stars. I mean, honestly, they have that. And when you can see a tangible thing like 300,000 people following you, or something, 200 characters get spread to 100,000 people, what does that do to your ego?
Yeah,
it pumps it up.
Exactly.
And so it further fuels their desire to reach this rock star status. And whether that's, you know, and like you, to your point, a lot of it is shoot first, aim later.
Yep.
And we've got this fever over, well, politicians or anyone to be first. It doesn't have to be right. It just has to be first, because we've got to be the ones that comment on this or report the story, and the facts be damned.
Yep, exactly.
So it's I don't know. And let's not forget about all the other investigations going on, whether it's an SDNY or the, you know, another attorney general's office, all of those types of things. And now we've got the Avenatti issue. And I just absolutely love that dumpster fire. What do you think about that?
That guy's just a mess from day one. And the fact that he, you know, a while back ago was bragging that he was going to run for president, and now everything's just collapsed around him. It's kind of funny to watch. Like I said, it's just he's a total dumpster fire.
It is. I mean, did you see his tweet this morning about releasing all the information about Nike right before?
No.
So he wrote a tweet at 9:15 this morning, give or take a few minutes, that said at 11 o'clock or something, he's going to be releasing a bunch of information about a huge scandal involving Nike and college athletics. And then at 11 o'clock, bang, he gets cuffed and stuffed. So, yeah, bad day to be Michael Avenatti.
Yep, definitely.
So, we'll cruise on from the Mueller report, but I'm sure we'll be talking about this much more as time transpires.
That was a nice segue with the cruise on there, by the way.
You like that? You like
that? Nice.
Exactly. Then that's because there's a massive cruise ship stranded off the coast of Norway. Now, if there's another place to be stranded, Norway is not a bad place to be stranded, but tell us about that.
But maybe out in the choppy waters is not so hot, especially if you're seasick and you got the rocking and rolling going on out there. So this is a big, full-size, massive cruise ship that was had engine trouble, lost its engines, and it had 1,300 passengers on board, and basically was just adrift at sea. And so they ended up in a place where they knew they could drop anchor to keep them from drifting anymore. So they dropped anchor and just basically parked it out there. And they had a lot of photos online, and it was really rough water that they were stuck in. And so they were bouncing all over the place. Even a massive cruise ship like this was still rocking pretty good.
It was going like crazy.
Yeah. And they had to evac the passengers off of there via helicopter. So that took them, I can't remember how long that took them, but that took them just hours and I think days, multiple days to get everybody off of there. And then they finally, I don't know why, maybe they're worried about it sinking or something like that, but then they ultimately ended up hooking up a tugboat to it and towing it in. But I'm kind of wondering why they evac the passengers off instead of just leaving them on there and tugging the boat in. But I don't know.
That's the thing that I was wondering as well, because you're out there. It's, you know, it doesn't have any structural damage. It didn't have any icebergs or anything. So why not just hook a couple tugs up to it and take it to home base rather than risk the safety of the passengers by airlifting? I mean, airlifting a couple of people is one thing, but you got 5 choppers out there, I believe, and one by one they're cherry picking people off the deck of this huge ship that's tossing and turning in what looked to be, really, really high seas. So but it sounds like everyone got out of there all right, and
that is correct.
No issues with that.
Yep.
Next up, we got Boeing, and we covered them last Thursday and their troubles. Well, it looks like they've almost got that 737 software patch ready to go.
Yeah, they do, although they're going to obviously face extra scrutiny from federal regulators to make sure that it is a legit patch. And American Airlines is playing it safe, and they've already canceled all of their flights that utilize this aircraft through the month of April. So they said they wanted to do that way out in advance like that to give their passengers enough time to rebook. That way they didn't spring it on them like, 3 days. Oh, by the way, we're going to have to cancel your flight. They wanted to give them like a month's notice, basically, for some folks. So Boeing is claiming that the software patch is pretty much ready to go and could be installed within a week or two, and all the planes could be back up and running. But American Airlines kind of took the safe route and just went ahead and canceled everything through April.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the right decision on that one. But The one thing that I have found interesting is that it seems that there's quite a few people that may not quite understand the situation with the airplanes, because I've been seeing rumblings of people really upset that their flights have been canceled, and they don't understand the fact that it's because these airplanes have been removed from service. It wasn't because American or Delta or whomever they're flying on decided they just wanted to, all of a sudden dump an air or a flight. This
Right.
stuff happens for a reason. So I'm thinking maybe the airlines needs to do a little bit better job of getting in touch with folks and helping them understand the situation, that it's really
Right.
just for their safety.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's the key here, that the safety of everyone. It doesn't matter if it's a cruise ship or it's an airplane or an automobile.
Yep.
The consumer safety is numero uno.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
number 4 here, we've got the gas prices. And it's always funny to me, they always seem to have an excuse as to why they go up and up and up.
Yeah, and it's always with coming spring and summertime. It's always that stupid excuse of they're switching to the summer blend and all that kind of stuff. And but yeah, I sure noticed it big time, because I filled up close to 2 weeks ago at $2.49 a gallon, and I had to fill up this morning. And same place. I always go to Costco because they're the cheapest gas around. So 2 weeks ago, I filled up for $2.49, and I filled up this morning for $2.71. So that was
Yeah,
a big jump in a couple weeks. So
yeah, it's been a little bit of a steady march. I have one of the prime gas price watchers in the world that happens to live with me, my son Brandon. Yeah, you want to know what gas prices are at any local gas station at any moment in time. He will be able to recite them to you off the top of his head. And each time we cruise past Minute Mart, he gives me an update on how much the gas prices have gone up, and it's up to 3.15.9 at Minute Mart, I
yeah,
believe.
those guys gouge you something fierce. That's like the highest price in town right there.
Yeah. Between them and what used to be Wild Willie's, they have
Yep.
fairly significant gas prices. But
Yeah.
The fact that they use the excuse of the something going on, a change in the way the gas blend or something is going to be handled in the fall. That means that the refineries have decided no, this is what it was. The gas prices will be lower, I believe, in the fall. So they've decided to do their major upgrades or something in the spring. I'm like, what? You guys realize that this is a commodity that's being traded. How do you know what the market conditions are going to be like in 6 or 8 months? That really kind of struck me as a little bit wild there.
And then as a footnote to this article, with our lovely high gas taxes that we have here in our state of Washington, we are number 3 in the nation for gas prices right now. So this article ends with the average price of gas, the most expensive gas. California is at $3.43, Hawaii $3.39, and Washington at $3.02. So we're the 3rd most expensive gas in the country.
Yeah, and that's we made that deal with the devil back in, I think, in like 2005 or something like that. We passed these huge fuel taxes because back then everyone was driving the Suburbans and the Tahoes and big diesel trucks and stuff like that. They didn't see this electric vehicle revolution come. Elon wasn't smoking blunts with Joe Rogan and inventing rocket ships and electric space cars yet, or not space cars, electric vehicles. But so it's a little bit of lack of foresight on the lawmakers and the folks that write all these bills, because I believe we had to vote on that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and it's never enough, because now the state legislature for our state, Washington, is wanting to push through a carbon tax, which will add estimates for anywhere from like 30 to 45 cents a gallon if this goes through. So I mean, it's just a never-ending pile of garbage.
Well, one way or another, I was having a discussion with the boys about taxes and stuff like that, and I don't know how we got on the topic, whether it was Brandon talking about his pay stub or something like that. But we talked about how we don't have an income tax here in the state of Washington, yet Oregon does, because I think he was asking possibly about the price of fuel in Oregon being, considerably lower than over here. And I'm like, one way or another, they're always going to get it. It's in one form or fashion, and it affects different people in different ways, because in California, it affects your high income earners, and the same thing in Oregon. In Washington, it affects people that drive a lot. And so it's kind of who they, and the sin taxes, our sin taxes here are pretty dang high on cigarettes and tobacco and things of that nature. So, one way or another, they're gonna pick on one group or a couple groups and hammer them. And we've just chosen to not pay a 9% income tax, which frankly, I would rather have the ability to impact my taxation by not driving rather than not working.
Yeah, exactly. It's true.
So I guess it's a lesser of two evils. So, well, kind of on the same path as gas prices, going up and how that impacts the economy. We've got the bond market, which is always a good fortune teller for how the economy is doing. It's signaling a recession.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and run with this because you're more in tune with this than I am. But I read the article that I posted up from CNBC. It's pretty interesting.
It's very
scary, I guess.
Well, it's something that we've, you and I talked about it earlier last year about how I brought up the inversion of the yield curves and how that impacts because I believe we had a 2-5 inversion, a 2-year and 5-year. Well, now the 10-year and the 3-month have inverted, and that's a really bad situation because typically you want your longer term securities to go, or treasuries to, they're going to pay you more than a short term. Well, now the 3-month is paying you it very quickly on Friday, and I think it went back, but the 3-month bond yield was 10 basis points higher than the yield on the 10-year, and so typically this is kind of a little bit of a crystal ball into the fact that we could have a recession on our hands. And usually when the 10 and the 3 and the 10 and the 2 invert, 2-year, not 2-month, when they invert, we're looking at a little bit longer distance for any type of recessionary economic situation. So, I mean, I think we're still looking at 2020, 2021, and I've kind of been harping on that a little bit and did I forget to tell you that we had our birthday earlier this month? Totally forgot that. We had our 1-year anniversary, and this just reminded me of that. But we've talked, on March 7th. So happy birthday to us. Happy birthday to KCP and Tia and Hojo and everyone else. So anyway, but so it's something to really keep an eye on. It's not that that's the end all be all, and that's like some kind of decision maker. I don't want to give anyone that kind of thought, but it is something. It's an indicator, and we try to keep an eye on that. Now, the stock market, the stock markets, the equities, and the treasuries are kind of at odds with each other most of the time, because when one is up, traditionally the other one is going to be down. And so in this instance, we're getting I shouldn't say up and down. They just have a different outlook on things. And right now the stock market is very bullish, and the treasuries are not so much. And the other thing to keep an eye on was the fact that the 10 and the 2 almost inverted on Friday as well.
And one thing to keep an eye on as well is when this recession, may hit, and is it going to be far enough in the future so as to not affect the presidential election? Because if we start tanking before next November, then that's going to really hurt Trump's reelection chances. But if he can keep the economy rolling just to get him through the election, then I think he would fare pretty well. So that'll be an interesting thing to watch. So.
You're absolutely right, and that's a really good point to bring up. I just remembered that when we covered this story, I think it was late spring, early summer last year, the indicator that we looked at was typically a 19, if I remember correctly, a 19 to 21 month kind of that's when you can expect some kind of downturn in the economy. So, that still puts us right on par for mid 2020 from back then, early to mid 2020. And we're starting to see, some other challenges, that mainly being the global economy is slowing down. China is slowing down. And that's a huge economic driver here in the United States, because they consume a lot of materials and a lot of things that we produce, and vice versa.
Yeah, that's right.
So we'll see how that impacts us. The main thing is that, it's not we never want to run out and freak out about this stuff. But a lot of times, one of my big concerns, going back to kind of the journalistic standard, is the fact that we get all these pieces, and you'll start to see them here pretty soon. These pieces on getting people all freaked out and scared about what the economy is going to do in the near future. And that fear, I think, starts to once it's dropped in the brain, people start to take that kind of stuff to heart, and whether they cut back on their discretionary spending, or businesses start to hoard cash, things of that nature, because of these headlines that come out. Because we've also covered in great detail the fact that people are headline readers, they're not actual story readers. It's all bullet points, cliff notes, and things of that nature. And so those are the things that can accelerate the downturn in an economy. Is you start to see all these crazy stories come out, and it feeds that fire that is fear that the economy is turning down, and it affects homes, and then all of the car sales, that kind of stuff. And those things have a huge impact on our economy, because so much of it is service related.
Right.
So it's all service and consumer goods, because that's all we do. I mean, that's what we've been taught since we were born, is that you have to consume more in order to run a good economy. That's the only way to do it, right?
Yep. That's true.
Kind of and that's what we hope that we can teach, that it's not about what you have, it's about what you do, and how good of a person and stuff you can be for others. It's not the fact that your car is cooler than anyone else's, or brand new, or anything like that. But
right.
American culture just doesn't want to buy that. So we'll continue to preach from our mountaintop, right?
There you go.
Well, I think this has been another successful show. We want to keep these Monday shows. We're going to try to keep them kind of tight to the 30 to 45-minute time frame, mainly focusing on kind of a hot sheet based show. So you have anything more for us this evening, my fine man?
No, I don't believe I do.
Okay, well, then we will see everyone on Thursday. I believe that. Well, are you going to come over here?
Yeah, can. Yeah.
Sweet. We'll see how the weather is doing, because I am itching for an outdoor show. I don't know.
That would be nice.
I am ready to rock and roll. We don't have to get all the lamps out, because we still have light at a decent hour. So we'll see how that plays out. But I want to thank everyone for listening. You can find us at kineticchaos.com. You can find Wes at 2599 on the Twitterverse. Me, I'm at One Hand Man. We got Kinetic Chaos Pod on the Twitterverse and Instagram as well. So thank you guys for watching. You have a good night, bud. Okay.
Have a good one.
Okay, we go.